We've trudged through the dense jungles of Vietnam. We feared for our lives in the streets of Los Sueños. Now it's time to enter the time machine and go back to World War II and get all the things that they used in Hell Let Loose and put them on the almighty tier list, which is based on the gospel that is expelled from my mouth and is a fact beyond all reasonable doubt. And that is why we'll be basing a lot of the things in terms of how much fun they are, which is a concept people missed in my last tier list video, but alas, there was a great issue that caused my hard drive to essentially delete a bunch of files. For example, you'd think that this MP4 file would contain a video of me killing someone with the M1 Garand, but you'd be dead wrong. It somehow turned itself into a 1-hour MP3 file of music. I've never ever heard of it. It's just... making these tier list videos can be utter pains at times, but thanks to the guys over at Gary Busters for allowing me to use the World War II helicopter to capture some sweet cinematic shots. But ladies and gentlemen, I now present you the ultimate Hell Let Loose tier list in terms of fun. Oh shit! The first list on the reason, yeah, I'm a minute in and I'm already having a stroke, is why I rewrite these scripts about 50 times, because trying to get this gameplay was utterly painful, and that is the AT gun. This thing required a whole 3-man logistical system to set up, and it can be near impossible if you're playing with randoms at certain times, and chances are you might end up walking around aimlessly looking for a prime piece of real estate to set up shop, and sometimes you might be on one of those maps where you just won't have a good shot or a decent place to put it without getting vaporized instantly. But the thing is, I know it's tempting. You are the anti-tank guy after all. You went through this monumental effort of getting supplies to build this thing, so it makes sense you might want to hog the gunner's seat. But this is actually the wrong way to use it. It's best to take the squad approach of building it in a good spot and leaving it there until it's needed, rather than sit on it for half the game, maybe sniping some infantry and just wasting ammo. In terms of fun, this thing is, okay, truthfully, on the right map, this thing can be oh so much fun, as you overlook what is essentially a nice open firing range, and you might even get lucky and take out some tanks, which really is the main purpose of using this thing, as well as preventing an enemy tank from advancing and needing to stop and waste time trying to pixel spot you from a kilometer away. When I was getting the gameplay, I wanted to pull my hair out at times. It was not fun, but in some situations I think it balances out, because you can absolutely wreak havoc. On an invasion or offensive game mode, I believe it's called, you can just bombard the default Gary on the right map. Sure, it's very expensive to use this thing, but just hitting them spawn after spawn can be so fun, and also pretty good for the team to allow them to actually push up or deal on the flanks with other garrisons. But I think the AT gun deserves to be put in C tier. The next thing on the list is AP and AT mines. Very simple. Find a major road or an area with lots of foot traffic, place mine down, and then you forget you even put it down in the first place until you check the kill count, which is exactly what happened when I got this gameplay. I didn't even hear the ping you usually get that confirms a kill, but given my history in the Vietnam War, I have always been an advocate of telling players to take the time to place traps wherever they can, because it only takes a couple of seconds and it may or may not land you a kill. And while the same applies in Hell Let Loose, I find them a little harder to use properly. One of my biggest gripes is that you can't place the AP mine inside, which on a map with a lot of interiors such as Carrington or even Stalingrad, those AP mines could, well, okay, now that I say it out loud, I think it might lead to a lot of friendly fire with them just exploding and taking out your teammates, but you know, I'd still like to have that ability to put them inside. But also, if you try to put them out in the open on a cheeky little spot on the objective, one artillery strike is enough to set them off. I'm not saying these things are useless, because it can land you maybe an extra 5 to 10 kills in a game or prevent a push, and especially if you use them in a way to create a daisy chain, it can be very effective. But let's be real, I mean, they're not that fun to use, because sometimes you might go out of your way to use them and you might end up dying because you weren't paying attention, and you might realize, oh, I actually got a kill because you forgot you even used them in the first place. But I'm gonna be putting them in D tier. But the next thing on the list is responsible for a lot of those chaotic YouTube shorts that you might have seen and then been suckered into getting this game, and it really perpetuates the idea of the name behind this game, and that is none other than artillery. I'm going to give you a quick and easy guide that'll make every other YouTuber's tutorial completely irrelevant. Step 1, hop on artillery. Step 2, Alt-tab and maybe get up some Netflix or adult content, whatever, it's up to you. Step 3, get up the artillery calculator. Step 4, make sure you are the squad leader and mark on the map where you want to hit, and input the distance into the calculator, and now you have a super accurate death gun. Bonus points, this is an actual helpful thing that I'm about to say. Try and understand where a lot of people might be running from, and also try to check out for any garrison or OP reportings on the map and try to specifically hit them. That's an actual fact that you should do. But in all seriousness, I enjoy playing artillery if I don't feel like getting too involved, and it's all fun and games until the Recon class shows up and rains on your parade. I view the artillery similar to the artillery in World of Tanks. They are incredibly annoying, they can hit you but you can't hit them, they both give an immense amount of suppression that can absolutely cripple you, and it can lock off an entire area preventing a push. The amount of times a garrison or OP is built right out in the open of a point is literally asking you to get spawn camped over and over again, and it happened to me a couple of times trying to get this footage. But being on the receiving end of artillery is a double-edged sword. It can create some cinematic moments that can cause anxiety-inducing fear as you hear it coming in and wondering whether it's going to land on your head. On the other hand, it can be incredibly annoying, especially if your recon isn't doing anything about it. But if you just want a lazy, relaxed game of hell let loose, and you just want to plop your ass down on these things, they can be pretty fun because my TikTok zoomer brain gets a dopamine hit every time that kill notification comes in, and then I rush to check the scoreboard to see how many kills I got with that one hit. But that's why I'm putting it in B tier. But moving on, the next thing can either be the most rewarding and satisfying thing you can do in this game, or it can be akin to, and disclosure, I don't have kids or a family, not too high on my priority list. Staying on topic, almost every person I've met that plays this game probably has a wife and kids, but this role is akin to having a bunch of spoiled, ungrateful little shits as kids, and that is the commander role. If you know me, any form of leadership position stresses me out, because being a commander in these games, I treat it like I'm playing an RTS, a menu simulator. I lock myself in cover and try to micromanage each individual soldier, except in my menu simulator games, if I send a whole platoon into their death or drop a bomb on them, they can't talk back like the real people that play this game. But for the sake of this video, I forced myself to go commander, and the stars aligned. It was absolutely perfect. I said, hey, you know, I'm new, I'm not that good, but I know the theory inside and out, I just haven't put it into practice. Every squad leader was on their mics, they were coordinated, giving advice on where to drop a bombing run based on what they've seen. For example, garrison reported, strafe it and have 2 squads go in to secure the flank, and we ended up winning. But this is the perfect scenario. I have seen games where the commander is running around like a headless chicken building garrisons because no one else is doing it, and the enemy recon is competent at their jobs. Commander being blamed for things that are out of his control, such as having no resources to call stuff in because there are no nodes, and he had to go into main spawn to scold a guy on artillery because he wouldn't stop firing and wasting all the ammo, which of course the guy on artillery has no microphone and the ability to understand spoken English. I respect people that play this role consistently because almost every tactical shooter that we play will utterly suck it without them. It's not for me. I find it not fun and super stressful. I absolutely hate it, but I acknowledge people enjoy the challenge and the responsibilities that come with it, which is why I will be putting it in D tier rather than F tier, simply because of that. The next thing on the list has to be the most disappointing thing in this game. You know the expression, once you go black, you you never go back, honestly explains the way a dead body looks after being hit with this thing, but it's the flamethrower. Once you've used the one in Rising Storm, no other game can really come close to portraying it in such a scary way, which is how a lot of people felt about its introduction in Hell Let Loose. After spending so much time leveling up the support role to level 8 and finally trying it out, it's just so underwhelming and inconsistent. Sometimes I nail a guy who's a fair bit away, and the next moment it's like it doesn't even do any damage point blank, resulting in me getting killed. On some close quarters maps, it can absolutely work, but I find myself thinking, why didn't I just take a submachine gun, which honestly would be more consistent in close quarters? But a really big advantage that the flamethrower has is in its ability to do an ambush. Especially if groups of enemies are running through a doorway, you can kill them all quickly and leave a burning flame to prevent them from trying to push again. You can even destroy trucks with it. But I know people might say it's stupid to make a comparison between these games, but anyone that's used Rising Storm's flamethrowers can absolutely vouch for me. Simply the act of burning someone and watching their body flail around screaming in agony was utterly brutal, and it really added to the immersion of the game, which we also miss in Hell Let Loose. Either way, I got the flamethrower, tried it, and it's something I won't personally use a whole lot of unless in specific circumstances, which is why I'm putting it in D tier. But moving on to another role that's just, oh, so much fun. It's good for a lazy person who just wants to sit their ass down and mow groups of people down, and that is the machine gunner role. Not all weapons are made equal, since some are better than others, some are more fun than others, and some make me hate using them, but the absolute fun ones are the Browning and MG42. What is there not to love about finding a solid object and then, oh wait, yeah, that's right, Hell Let Loose is quite possibly the worst bipod mechanics I have ever seen in any video game. Want to sit on a roof? Yeah, good luck. You think this fence is able to be mounted? Nah, try again, buddy. I swear the biggest detriment to this role is the bipod mechanics, and I hope that one day Team 17 reworks it. But if you do manage to get mounted right next to a choke point, you can just keep it locked down till you inevitably get domed. The reason these in particular are so much fun is because they have nice open iron sights. The MG42's fire rate is oh so good, coupled with that buzzsaw sound that really strikes terror in me whenever I try to push it. These are easily S tier fun, especially on certain maps. But the BAR is no slouch if you technically want to class that as a machine gunner, even though it's in the machine. I don't know where I'm going with this, but historically what I found is it didn't use a bipod in World War II, which is unfortunate in terms of gameplay, and the game also doesn't model its various fire modes, which RS2 does do, but it's practically an automatic M1 Garand. However, the drum and magazine fed mountable machine guns I don't personally like to enjoy. The DP27 isn't that bad, but it's because its iron sights are good for long range shooting, whereas I can't get the hang of the British LMGs. The iron sights make it oh so difficult to spot things at range, and it can't deliver a consistent amount of suppression compared to these weapons. However, the Bren gun can be used if you can tough it out with that giant magazine, making it hard to even see things in close range. Because the thing is, right, you look at a French car, for instance, you take off the badge, but you can just tell based on the ridiculous design that it's a French car. And you look at a British made weapon, and some of them especially, and you're like, yeah, that's a British gun. It just has a ridiculous design. I don't know the practicality, but you know, it's got that French car look to it that makes it stand out, but that's completely off topic. But the machine gunner role as a whole, it's just plain old fun. That's why I'm going to be putting it in S tier, simply because majority of the time you'll be using the fun machine guns. But the next thing on the list was actually going to have a whole video dedicated to it. I still plan to do it over time, but if I kept at it, I might have gone bold, which is something I fear a little bit whenever I look at myself in the mirror after a shower, and that is knifing and melee. I feel like the majority of my knife kills are out of sheer panic as I run face to face into an enemy and I end up pressing the squad chat button before eventually pressing the melee button. And this has actually happened where I pressed the squad chat button and, you know, the whole command chat got an earful of me swearing. Not the first time I've hot mic'd either, since I got satcheled in a tank and I was blaming the friendly infantry for being useless and incompetent, only to realize I was speaking in command chat, not squad chat. Had to apologize for that one, but in RS2, running around with the Matic like a Viet Cong on meth is just one of the most rewarding and best things, to the point they even created an achievement after it. But in Hell Let Loose, if we just ignore the absolute detriment and selfishness you are to your team, it just doesn't work in the same way, and it isn't as fun running around like a madman with a knife. But the thing is, there's a juxtaposition in how I try to get this footage and how you play the game as a whole, in the sense that I was running around specifically to get knife kills, and that's not fun. That drove me utterly insane, but I'm not gonna hold that against this as a whole, because those moments where the opportunity just arises, an enemy has their back to you, and that thing pings in your brain, you're like, I can knife this guy. I can definitely go for it. Like, what difference does it make if I shoot him in the back, get a headshot maybe, or I knife him? Well, it's just the styling, like the pizzazz. As you essentially saying to them, yeah, you know, you turned your back to me and now you pay the price for it. Sit down and think about it in the respawn screen. So purely based on those opportunistic moments, or the moments where you run face first into an enemy and you pull out the knife, that is fun. I really do enjoy it. And that's why I'm going to be putting it in C tier. But the next thing on the list is possibly the most important thing in Hell Let Loose. Really, any tactical shooter that you play, it can also contribute to you having the most fun with it, whilst also, and mind you, I don't have a statistic other than trust me bro, but you will win more games if you do this one thing. What you want to do is go to your local electronics store, buy a microphone, set it up, and use it. If you're new from the free Epic Games sale, which honestly happened a while ago, this video took longer than I thought, I apologize. Please, for the love of God, buy a damn microphone and use it. Because believe me, I could barely order fast food. I could not approach them until I forced myself to get a job working there, but you're just gonna have to learn to overcome that fear and learn to communicate, even if it's just to give some very basic callouts like enemy on ping. I think there's a spawn over here. If you don't want to speak as infantry for whatever reason, it doesn't tilt me as much as my biggest gripe, and the one thing that tilts me beyond all logical reason is if you don't own a mic or are willing to use one, for the love of God, do not get in a tank. If you're a squad leader and you don't have a mic, I don't like that, but you know, it is what it is. But for the love of God, do not get into my tank squad. I would take 2 fresh installed 12-year-olds that are willing to learn and speak over a level 500 Hell Let Loose esports player in my tank that doesn't have a mic, because communication is the most important thing when operating a tank, and if we do bad, I still feel good teaching them and watching them lose their tank kill virginity. Some of the best games I've had in a tank was with first timers, and that was simply because they actively were participating. And if we get that and apply it to the infantry role, you will function so much better and have much more fun with people, whether that's role-playing Hacksaw Ridge or actually communicating. You know what? I'm not going to put the microphone in S tier. I'm not even going to be putting it anywhere on this tier list except for the S plus tier. It'll be the only thing that goes in S plus tier, because I hope that one day I hop into a game of Hell Let Loose and I don't see myself and others bitching about no one using a mic, because the problem would have been solved. S plus tier. The next thing on the list is the Recon class. I always treat this role as if I'm playing as some SAS soldier from Medal of Honor European Assault, the best one, because you go behind enemy lines and just ruin their network, meaning backup garrisons, nodes, reporting intel to the command chat of enemy movements, possible locations, and if there's a tank leaving spawn, and also setting up ambushes, which I really want to emphasize the importance of being patient when using the sniper rifle, because I had a guy, supply truck leaving spawn, could have knocked him out and destroyed that supply truck, but no, I got a little too antsy, moved out of my spot and whiffed a shot. Don't be like me. But staying on topic of the squad leader, while this role sounds cool, a lot of the time you end up having to drive all the way to the end of the map, hopping out and hoping you don't run into the enemy recon, set up an OP and just prevent the enemy artillery from functioning, which is an important job, but it gets boring after a while if I'm being honest. Playing as a squad leader, I wouldn't view it as too much fun, but the true fun lies in the sniper class, who can independently work from the squad leader. While they're off trying to disrupt their backlines, you pitch a 10 to 100 meters away from the action and you just head click. There's just something so satisfying about hiding on a roof and doming cunts from a distance and watching them drop and their friends nearby panic and throw smokes because you just stalled their advance, whilst also helping your allies move up. It is a highly sought after role for a reason, and it's just plain old fun. You can't go wrong with the sniper, especially since you can have a big help on your team, which is actually the complete opposite. If you saw Martin Cito Pants's Battlefield videos, he put it in F tier, which I absolutely agree with in Battlefield, but in Hell Let Loose, I will be putting it in A tier. Moving on to the thing that led to my very first embarrassing moment in this game, it's actually ingrained in my brain the sheer disappointment my squad leader expressed when I got behind a Panther point blank and missed 2 shots from the rear on an already damaged tank, and that is the anti-tank role, more specifically rockets and the PTRS. The rocket launcher is pretty simple at a glance: see tank, shoot tank, profit with praise from people nearby. The iron sights are absolutely horrendous and take practice to get down, but they're also good for sending a long-range shot to destroy garrisons, OPs, and large clusters of infantry. I mean, who doesn't enjoy the rocket launcher in any game? It's my favorite one to use in squad, launching RPGs that are lodgy full of troops. There isn't too much variation in how both of these work, except that the Panzerschreck technically has better penetration, or it's because the US tank armor values are different. I don't know, the armor system in this game is definitely interesting to say the least, but I rewrote the next portion about the PTRS. It was a hit piece. Blatant slander. Stalin would have risen from his grave and had me shot. I thought it was an absolute piece of crap, which truthfully, in terms of pure anti-tank purposes, you're like a mosquito. Majority of the time you won't kill, but you'll be oh so annoying and distracting. Against heavies, it's near useless unless from the rear, and if you don't have another person or 2 shooting at the rear as well, which can actually shut down a lot of vehicles quick if you coordinate, it's not good for anti-tank against heavies especially. But the PTRS is actually a really fun weapon because it's literally a Barrett 50 cal, a long-range shotgun in the sense your bullets will turn anything it hits into a bloody pile of goop. Getting into a good position and just vaporizing infantry is just fun, and even shooting a lightly armored vehicle and watching them panic and try to get away or look for you is also really fun, and I'm actually thankful I gave it a proper fair go. It's a fun little thing, especially in terms of anti-infantry. These weapons are, just as a whole, very fun and effective, and that's why I'll be putting them in S tier. The next thing on the list goes out to my jihadi viewers who like to cause as much death and destruction as possible with a tiny box, and that is the satchel. This is a common mindset of a satchel user. They might start off as an engineer, they might go off and build nodes, hopefully, until they get killed by a tank one too many times. Then they will promptly have a mental breakdown and equip the Box of Doom. As a tank main, this thing is literally the bane of my existence and why I hate tight maps such as these, because they're in the trees, they're always watching you, you can't see them, but they can see you, and they're just waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It's also the fear you instill in the tank crew where the driver says we've been satcheled, and then the commander will say no we haven't, and then it's in an area where it's too hot to jump out and check for yourselves, so you count down the seconds. And the relief you feel when you actually weren't satcheled is so relieving. But the thing is, when I try to use the satchel, it's like the commander has CCTV all over the tank, because I can't get anywhere near it. I can't run fast enough. It always feels like it outruns me. It always feels like they spot me even though I might like crouch run towards them from behind, and for some reason they actually have good positioning and there's always infantry around them to prevent me from getting too close to the tank. But the satchel has many uses. It's good for destroying nodes, garrisons, enemies entrenched in a building. It's got so many uses, but the one reason why I wouldn't put it in S tier is simply because, like fly replies are to a piece of shit. You could literally have one of those admin messages pop up on screen, or God himself whispering in their ear that there is a satchel on the tank or wherever and don't run towards it. The blueberries tend to do it anyways, and having to wait 30-40 seconds because some people play the game without sound is pretty frustrating. So there's a satchel on the tank. There is a satchel on the tank, bro. It has a satchel. But it's pretty damn cool putting a satchel outside a building or on a garrison and just watching it blow up and getting heaps of kills. That's pretty fun. But that is why I'm gonna be putting it in A tier. But now we move on to my absolute favorite thing in this game. Probably half the amount of hours that I have in this game is because of this one thing, and it's also why I constantly come back to this game, and that is tanking. Depending on so many factors such as what the map is, the crew, the team, the enemy, it can be the most blood pressure racing experience, because I've had games where I simply get outplayed or, skill issued, essentially. I probably got called that already based on the comments section. I haven't read them yet, but I can predict them. Or, we could do something stupid and end up raging because of my own idiocracy. But you just have those games where the stars align. I'll let this clip of me two-manning a tank with this really high-ranking player just absolutely dunking on the enemy. And like I said previously, we were both on the microphones constantly talking, and the hypothetical question of would I rather have two absolutely bare bones noobs or one high experienced no micer? Well, I would still take the noobs with the mic, but if there's one other guy who's high ranking but with a mic, I'd take him over the noobs. But in the past, I've criticized the tank mechanics, and yes, they still could use some work. For instance, 75 jumbo, like, are they gonna do something with it? It's literally just taking up file storage of the game. Don't know why they can't just give it a bigger HE blast radius or swap it out with a Hellcat and give it maybe give it recon speed, but make it a little more vulnerable. I don't know. I'm just spitballing. I'm trying to try something new for the fucking tanks. But I've gone completely off script and started rambling again. I apologize. But the reason why I find this so fun is because I have very little control over my own life. At least that's how it feels. And getting two other people, whether they're a noob or experienced, to work together to provide great armor and anti-infantry support is quite frankly the best feeling for me that you can get out of this game. You could probably tie it in with winning a game where you thought you were going to lose playing as commander and you somehow pull through. I have tried so many times to get into tanking in squad and it just doesn't do it for me, and it's purely psychological because if you lose a tank in squad, it's much more punishing compared to losing a tank in Hell Let Loose. There are so many fixes and improvements that can be made that I can suggest, but even in its current state, it's still the best thing in the game, in my opinion, and that's why I'm gonna be putting it no lower than S tier. But moving on to the last thing, and that is the role that people can be ungrateful towards, and that is the medic role, in which games like Squad 44, and really any tactical shooter that has a medic system are absolutely crucial. But in Hell Let Loose, I put in the script, this is going to be a really hot take, but I did some research. I don't think this is a hot take, but they are borderline useless, and I even found out some servers lock the medic role behind a level 500 rank requirement, essentially saying you're not playing this role because it's useless. And to an extent, I kind of disagree, like I kind of contradict myself, but just let me explain. When I was introducing my mates to Hell Let Loose, we had one game we clutched because we all went medic and we were just running around the defensive point, just mass reviving people. In those situations on defense, absolutely vital and can keep a team fighting, especially if, all your garrisons and OPs have been wiped out. But I find with the majority of my experience throughout a normal game, I go to revive someone and then they just give up, and I wasted my time exposing myself. It's not their fault because I feel like holding down the F key instantly is an automatic response to a lot of Hell Let Loose players, myself included, and it's a combination of a unique ticket system, if you want to call it a ticket system, system, but also the spawn wave mechanic causing me to, rather than wait for the medic to run 50 meters to me, I can just gamble hoping that the spawn timer on a garrison or OP is down to 10 seconds. But the role itself can be incredibly fun because rather than trying to focus on shooting the enemy, you are dodging bullets and explosions and trying to bring your mates back from the dead. Sometimes with morphine, sometimes with just the sheer power of communism, but I think I was a little harsh calling the role outright useless because there are cases where it can absolutely come in clutch, but it's actually a pretty different way to play the game as opposed to just running around headfirst into the enemy. But I find it's my frustration of people just instantly giving up, and like I said, I'm guilty of this as well, and not giving the medic a chance to try and revive them, because, I mean, you can gamble and wait, like, okay, the medic's gonna run 50 meters towards me, he revives me, what are the chances I just get clapped instantly upon being revival, and that's assuming the medic even lives long enough to get to me, when in reality, I can just respawn and then, oh, look, 5 seconds on the garrison, and then I'm back in the fight. And even just giving up, it's not even detrimental to the team because, I mean, there might be situations where they have no nodes and they're actually in a manpower deficit, but I mean, that's the commander's problem, really. I mean, I'm not actually saying that, I mean that in a sarcastic way. But that's why I'm gonna be putting it in F tier. But this concludes today's video, and these are just some of the things in my opinion that are the most fun things to use in Hell Let Loose and where they stack up on a tier list. If you enjoyed the video, click on the video that is on screen, and also please give it a like because this was painful to make at certain times, if I'm being absolutely honest. And the reason why it took so long to get uploaded is, quite frankly, I have a crippling and debilitating Marvel Rivals addiction. It is a fun game. Plain old stupid ADHD-inducing fun, and I fucking love it, to put it simply. But I'm gonna end the video there. If you did enjoy it, please do consider leaving a like, subscribing, sharing your video with your friends. Anyways, my name is Tan2, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace.